And then I transferred to bus operations, and I worked there. And I was part-time at that point because I had a video job in Orlando. I worked for Allied Film and Video, which was a film lab here. And I also worked for a place downtown, which is right across from the DuPont, I think it's the DuPont Center, the stair-step building. And we were right across the street from there. We watched them build that building. And the pounding, just like everybody was ready to just go insane because you'd be trying to work and there'd be like.
And what year would that have been?
I started working there in 1984, I believe, when that building went up. And I also remember way back from my Winter Garden days is because we only had one car, there was a bus stop across the street from the old post office, and I would walk up there with my mother, and we would get on the bus, and we would either go downtown and just mess around for the day. We'd go to the old Sears store, we'd walk around Lake Eola and feed the ducks, or we would go to Mount Dora. Wherever the bus went, my mom would have me on the bus, and we'd be going places. I remember going to see movies at Mount Dora at the old theater that used to be downtown there. And a lot of going downtown to the Sears store. And before Fashion Square opened, the Sears store downtown was the shopping district. You just went down there for the day. And when they closed the Sears store and said they were moving it out to where Fashion Square is now, that was the only thing. I mean, it was just the Sears store, and you could kind of see them building the rest of the mall. But there was just orange groves and stuff past there. And But it was really kind of fun to take a bus trip downtown and stuff like that. And this was before my brother and my sisters came along, so it was just me and my mom for a few years.
So from Winter Garden to downtown probably seemed like it was a world away back then.
Well, it was a big day trip. It was fun. I remember the bus station downtown. It wasn't too far. You could walk up to Orange Avenue, and remember. The old theater was still showing movies. The Beecham Theater was still showing movies, but I don't think we went to see movies there. We might have. I'm not quite sure. And but I remember the Sears store. I remember it had like a stairway in the middle and a lot of marble. And I remember walking on down to I guess it was McCroy's. They had a counter. We'd have lunch. We'd have sandwiches, and we'd walk back to the bus stop, get on the bus stop, and go on home. And my dad worked for Martin Marietta. My mother worked for Martin Marietta, and that's how they met. And my mother actually came down from Washington, D.C. And my dad had been in the Air Force, and then when Martin Marietta opened, he was like, wow, I think I'm going to go get a job there because I got all this military training. So he went to Martin and got on with them from Leesburg.
So earlier you mentioned Disney World. So what kind of changes have you seen in the area before Mr. Disney and his friends came to town, and then afterwards?
Well, according to my mother, who has long passed away, she said Disney ruined this town. When she moved here from D.C., she was used to the big city, and she loved it. She loved the orange grove. She loved the people. She said, it was just a really good place to raise your family. There were still wide open spaces. Like I said, growing up, it wasn't a dangerous place to live at all. And with Disney, started bringing in more construction, more houses, more building, more, companies, more people, more companies. All the little pasture land started disappearing, and it kind of started morphing into a bigger metropolitan area, which people who enjoyed the peace and quiet and the country atmosphere did not like at all. And there were still. I had friends growing up that lived on dirt roads. I mean, not all the roads were paved, and it just, you never thought anything about it. If somebody lived on a paved road or they didn't live on a paved road, it was no big deal. Which, thinking back, it must have been horrible with the rain, to not live on a paved road. But, I never thought about that as a kid. And but yeah, it was just a real quiet, sleepy little area. And Disney brought in a lot of people, a lot of other companies. I know it's good for the city governments because now they can charge all these taxes and everything, but it's looking more and more like Los Angeles, which is where I ended up working when Disney laid me off from the video area. And I was able to rent a room from an 82-year-old lady who had been in Los Angeles since the early 40s, and talking to her about that area and comparing it to this area, it's the same, Los Angeles had been through a couple different boom phases as well for like agriculture, and then the movies really started taking off in the 20s and 30s. And she said that in her area in Sherman Oaks, right down the street was a turkey farm. And now it's, multi-million-dollar houses. But she said that, yeah, you could walk around. There were cow pastures, there were horses. There was still wide open spaces when she moved there in the 40s.
And how long did you live in Los Angeles?
Total, it was about 13 years, but it wasn't continuous because I would come home for a while and I would go back for a while.
And what did you do there?
Well, at Disney, I ended up working on the TV shows, the Mickey Mouse Club and Adventures in Wonderland and Thunder in Paradise. And then the bottom kind of fell out of the industry when Disney decided that they could, use that space more for tourist activities instead of having a real working production studio. So basically, our facility, which was the Post Group and then became Disney Ideas, closed, and we were all laid off. And Disney Ideas actually closed, but the company was bought by Bob Allen and is now located downtown and is still working, but not working at the level that they were working when they were attached to the studios. And but all of us studio employees were basically laid off. And I thought, if I don't go to California now, I'm never going to go out there. I just always wanted to see what it was like because I'd worked with a lot of California people from Disney and at Disney. So I went out there and thought, nothing else, I'm going to have a nice 3-month vacation, and then I'll come back and I'll go back to driving a bus or whatever I can get hired on back at Disney. Because I was never going to leave Disney. I was like a lifer, or so I thought. But I went out there and started working for a company that actually did a lot of press and publicity for Disney feature films. And they were interested in me because I'd been doing press and publicity for the theme parks and for visiting productions, as well as working on, the Disney Channel shows that they produced down here. And so I started working, and then I kept working, and I kept working. And I never meant to really relocate out there, which is why I never really did. And I would, in between jobs, I would come home and I would find jobs here. But the industry here has changed a lot, and when I was home, there were less and less jobs to find, freelance. And so then I just ended up working out there full time, and I would come home and take a little vacation and then go out there when the work picked up again. But the Hollywood East scenario for this area really didn't last very long, and it wasn't a real accurate, it was more of a press and publicity thing to try and bring the production here. But productions always will shoot here, but they stay where they have their relationships in place with their editors and their, post houses and all that kind of stuff. Florida is a good location place, but they don't really want to finish here because all the people that come in on locations live in California. They don't want to be here any longer than they have to be here.
So what year did you move from California back to the Central Florida area?
Well, the first time was 2006, and I moved back because my father said he was dying and he needed me to come home. He was not dying, and he didn't need me to come home, so I went back in 2007. And then this last time, my father is health-wise not doing so well, and he's had some major surgeries. And so I moved back in 2012. And
back to Winter Garden?
Well, I live in Ocoee. I tried to buy a house in Winter Garden way back when, and they were not building houses that I could afford, and the ones that I could afford I didn't want to live in Winter Garden. So they were building new houses in Ocoee because they have more land there. And so I was able to buy a house about 3 miles from where I grew up in Ocoee.
And have you noticed since you've come back this time, some changes in the Ocoee and Winter Garden area just from 2006 until when you moved back in 2012?
Well, changes just in the past 5 years is there's a lot more road construction on the west side. And it seems like my earliest memories of going out to like the Fashion Square Mall, there was still open spaces, there were still cow pastures. The dairy for a long time still had cows behind, the T.J. Lee Dairy downtown. And slowly that area started filling into what it looks like now, just solid stores and roads and shops. And our west side of town is starting to look more and more like that with the 429 they've built and the big interchange and all these. There's still plots of land, but they're all being developed now. They're all up for sale. They're all, it's going away. All the pastures and all the pretty greenness is going away.
Well, thank you very much for your time today.